Story from Anonymous. Emma's house sat at the very end of a narrow alley, a place most people avoided without really knowing why. Long before houses were built there, the land had been used as a dumping ground for prisoners of war during World War II. The bodies were never officially relocated. They were simply left behind. From the outside, Emma's house looked no different from the others, but the land it stood on was not the same. Almost every night, Emma and her children experienced disturbances, small at first. The television would turn on by itself, lights flickered as if someone were playing with the switches, cabinet doors opened on their own. But the most disturbing incidents always happened in the bathroom. On certain nights, Emma would hear the sound of a woman softly humming. Sometimes that humming was accompanied by a figure, a female presence that briefly revealed itself before disappearing into the darkness. This night, however, was different. It was around 2 a.m. when heavy rain and violent wind suddenly swept through the area. Water began leaking into Emma's bedroom, forcing her to sleep in the living room instead. Her husband and children slept deeply, unaware of the storm outside. Emma, however, couldn't sleep. She turned from side to side, her body restless, her mind unsettled. Her dog began howling loudly, long, desperate cries that echoed through the house. Then Emma felt it. A sudden wave of heat, unnaturally warm, surrounding her body. Growing more anxious, she picked up her phone, scrolling aimlessly while quietly humming to calm herself. That's when she heard it. A scratching sound. It came from the living room door, as if something or someone was dragging its nails across the wood. Emma assumed it was her dog, trying to get inside. But then the dog's howling changed. The sound twisted into something else, a cry of pain or fear. The scratching at the door continued. Concerned, Emma decided to check on her dog. She walked toward the living room window, planning to look outside and make sure everything was okay. She reached for the curtain, and the moment she pulled it open, it was already there. Right outside the window stood a creature beyond anything human. Its tongue was unnaturally long, hanging from its mouth. Its fangs extended outward, sharp and exposed. Its face and its eyes glowed a deep, horrifying red. Emma tried to turn away. She couldn't.
Her entire body froze, every muscle locked in place. Her eyes were forced to stare directly into the creature's eyes, unable to blink, unable to look away. Slowly, deliberately, the creature pressed its tongue against the glass, licking the window, while producing a sound so disturbing it felt like it was vibrating inside her skull. Emma tried to scream. Her mouth wouldn't move. No sound came out. All she could do was cry silently and pray in her mind. Then suddenly, her husband called her name. The instant his voice filled the room, the creature vanished, gone, as if it had never been there. Her husband approached, confused. "Why are you standing by the window?" he asked. "And why are you sweating like that?" Emma was too weak to answer. Even after the night ended, the fear did not. Emma developed a high fever that lasted 3 days. She couldn't sleep. Night after night, insomnia took hold. She only began to recover after her husband took her to visit a priest. Even now, Emma believes that something still remains on that land. Something that never left. The one who hums.
Based on a true story, The Dollhouse That Didn't Stay Empty. Merlin and her husband had no idea that a simple family outing would quietly mark the beginning of something terrifying. It started on an ordinary afternoon when Merlin and her husband visited a local exhibition. Nothing unusual stood out until they passed a booth selling children's toys. One item immediately caught Merlin's attention, a beautifully crafted dollhouse. Merlin had 2 young daughters, Bella and Bricia. Thinking it would be the perfect gift for them to share, she decided to buy it. That decision would haunt their family forever. When they arrived home, Bella and Bricia were beyond excited.
The moment the box was opened, the girls eagerly began assembling the dollhouse together. Inside were miniature furnishings and 2 small female doll characters. Without hesitation, Bella and Bricia each chose one doll to represent themselves. From 2:30 p.m. until 7 p.m., the girls played non-stop. Merlin and her husband could only shake their heads, smiling, amazed by how absorbed their daughters were in their new toy. That night, everything changed. At 2 a.m., Bella suddenly woke up. She wasn't crying, she wasn't screaming, she was confused. Standing inside her bedroom was a little girl, someone younger than her. Bella was only 5 years old. To her innocent mind, the figure didn't seem threatening. She assumed it was just another child. Still half asleep, Bella spoke softly. "Hey, can you go home? It's still nighttime. We can play tomorrow. I'm really sleepy." The little girl didn't respond. She just stood there, silently. Moments later, the child moved closer and climbed onto Bella's bed, pressing against her if she intended to sleep beside her. Now uncomfortable and frightened, Bella decided to tell her parents. She climbed out of bed and walked down the hallway. Knock, knock, knock. Bella. "Mommy, can you help me?" Merlin. "Of course, sweetheart. What's wrong? Why are you awake?" Bella. "There's someone in my room. I told her to leave, but she won't. She's sleeping on my bed. I can't sleep." Merlin immediately woke her husband, and together they went to Bella's room. The room was empty. No strange child, no movement, nothing. Confused, Bella looked around and said quietly, "Oh, did she leave because I told on her?" Merlin tried to brush it off as a nightmare. The next day, Merlin and her husband had to leave town to meet a client. Before leaving, Merlin gave the girls strict instructions. They were to stay inside the house, lock all doors, and never open the door for anyone except their grandparents. Once alone, Bella and Bricia decided to pass the time by playing with the dollhouse again. 5 hours later, Merlin and her husband returned home. They knocked. No answer. They knocked again. Still nothing. Worried, they unlocked the door using their spare key. The moment they stepped inside, their hearts dropped. The house was completely trashed. Furniture overturned, objects scattered everywhere, drawers pulled out. Merlin panicked. Their first thought was robbery. They ran straight to Bella and Bricia's bedroom. The room was empty. Both girls were gone. Merlin collapsed, crying hysterically, while her husband searched the house again and again. Just as Elias saw, they tried to calm themselves enough to call the police. Bricia walked into the room. "Mommy, what's wrong? Why are you here?" Merlin froze, shocked, relieved, overwhelmed. She grabbed Bricia tightly. "Where is Bella?" Bricia looked confused. "Bella and I have been in the storage room. You and Daddy were there too. When I went out to get some water and saw you here, I got scared. I thought, maybe we were playing with ghosts?" Merlin and her husband ran toward the storage room. Before Merlin could open the door, it opened from the inside. Bella stepped out. "Mommy, weren't you inside with us?" An hour later, once everyone had calmed down, Merlin asked carefully, "Who were you playing with in there?" Bricia answered without hesitation, "We were playing with you. 3 hours after you left. You brought 2 little girls with you. They looked exactly like the characters in our dollhouse." Merlin's blood ran cold. "Then why is the house destroyed?" she asked. "Did you do this?" Bella shook her head. "No, Mommy. We only messed up our dollhouse." That night, Merlin and her husband came to a terrifying conclusion. They believed they had brought something evil into their home. The next day, they burned the dollhouse. Then they checked into a hotel, desperate for safety. For a while, everything was quiet. No strange noises, no figures, no nightmares. Until 3 days later, both Bella and Bricia woke up screaming from the same dream. They said the dollhouse characters appeared before them and whispered, "You burned our home, so we will burn yours." Shortly after, Merlin's husband received a phone call from their neighbor. Their house had burned to the ground. Completely. Based on a true story.
The figure in the hospital window. A few days ago, a woman named Rena experienced something that permanently changed the way she sees hospitals, especially at night. Rena was staying overnight to accompany her grandmother, who had been admitted to a private hospital in California. Her duty was the night shift. She wasn't alone. Her mother stayed with her as well. Night 1. Around 9 p.m., Rena and her mother arrived at her grandmother's hospital room. Rena's grandmother was already suffering from severe memory loss. Even events that happened less than a minute ago would disappear from her mind. Sometimes she would suddenly ask, "Is Ion still alive?" Ion, her husband, had passed away many years earlier. That night, Rena sat on a sofa facing her grandmother's bed. Directly above Rena's head was a large window that looked out into the hospital corridor. While Rena's mother talked with her grandmother, Rena opened some snacks and drinks she had brought with her. She was so focused on eating that she didn't hear their conversation at all. Until her mother suddenly raised her voice. "Please, don't say things like that. There's no one there." Rena jumped. "Mom, what happened? What did Grandma say?" Her mother hesitated before answering. "She said she saw a head looking through the window. No body, just a head, right above where you're sitting." After hearing that, Rena was too scared to sleep. She decided to stay awake. But exhaustion eventually won. Rena fell asleep. While sleeping, she dreamed that directly above her body, a long hospital pillow was floating, swaying slowly from side to side, as if something unseen was holding it. She realized it was a dream, but she couldn't move. When she finally forced herself awake, she noticed something far worse. Her grandmother was sitting upright on the bed, completely silent, staring straight at the balcony window, the same window directly across from where Rena had been sleeping. "Grandma?" Rena whispered. No response. For nearly 5 minutes, Rena watched her grandmother sit there, unmoving. Then, without a word, her grandmother lay back down and fell asleep. Soon after, Rena did too. The next morning, Rena and her mother went home, as another family member was scheduled to take over the hospital watch. Night 2. On the second night, Rena and her mother returned to the hospital around 7:30 p.m.
Everything felt normal until 12:30 a.m., when it was time for her grandmother to receive a blood transfusion. A nurse asked Rena to stay awake and monitor her grandmother during the procedure. Rena agreed and told her mother to get some sleep. Around 1:30 a.m., her grandmother suddenly complained of pain. "Where does it hurt, Grandma?" Rena asked. "The IV. It hurts so much. Please massage it." Rena gently rubbed the area around the IV in her grandmother's arm. Suddenly, her grandmother laughed softly. "He's here," she said. "The tall one. He's very tall. His hair is long. He's wearing an old hospital gown, like from a very long time ago." At 1:30 in the morning, hearing that a figure had appeared while you're alone in a hospital room is enough to make anyone freeze. Rena immediately tried to wake her mother, but her grandmother stopped her. "Don't wake her, let her rest." "Okay, Grandma," Rena whispered. Around 2 a.m., after finishing the massage, Rena said, "Thank you, Grandma. Please try to rest now." "Elias," Rena turned to walk back toward the sofa. Her grandmother spoke again. "What's that standing in front of the balcony window?" Rena stopped. "It looks like a man," her grandmother continued calmly. "He's standing still, all black, very tall." Rena's legs suddenly gave out. She collapsed to the floor. Panicking, she tried to wake her mother, hitting her leg repeatedly until she finally stirred. The moment her mother woke up, her grandmother suddenly said, "There's a bottle near your feet." Rena and her mother looked at each other. Neither of them understood what she meant. From that moment on, her grandmother never spoke again. She never formed another sentence. She would only cough, and when spoken to, she responded only by nodding or shaking her head.